So, let's see. So, it's got that line. God, this is so high. Can you even see me behind it?
Test, test. Welcome. Welcome to Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church. I am the Reverend Danielle Lindstrom. My pronouns are she, hers, and it is good to be together. We gather here on this Christmas Eve, fellow travelers looking for light, for hope, for joy, for peace, for love. We gather with anticipation to hear a story that we have heard, a story that we have wrestled with, a story we have been comforted by year after year, and for readings that invite us into deeper potential for meaning found in each part of our story, and to sing music that is so familiar it feels written on our hearts. May we listen as though this is the first time hearing this story, for we are not the same people we were last year. What do you notice? What do you hear? What do you feel? My hope is for the reminder, a reminder that though we wrestle with themes centuries old, tyrants and power and empire, fear and persecution, may we also hear that angels come to immigrants in a foreign land, that the birth of a single baby can shake the tyrants, that there is someone saying, come in, there is room for you here. That the stars can guide us in our wandering, in our wondering, into something braver, more compassionate, more hopeful, more loving, with the peace that comes with justice. So for tonight, let us hear the story. Let us remember its call, and together celebrate the good news. The good news that is in and is each and every one of us. We will begin with lighting our chalice and our first reading. The chalice is the symbol of our faith in the flames, all the flames that have come before, the flame welcoming us home.
First reading is called Come Christmas by Maureen Killoran. No one is ever really ready for Christmas. If we were really ready, if we were really all prepared, if every gift we had contemplated had been obtained, if every present was beautifully beribboned, if all the goodies our friends deserved were baked and cooled and stored just so, if each and every person we love was gathered for our celebration, if we never snapped at someone we cared about, nor stopped short of being all that we could be, if our minds were 100% loving and our hearts were 100% generous, they truly would be ready. And truly, we would not need Christmas quite so much. So come, Christmas, most needed of seasons. Come with the reminder that love does not depend on perfection, but on willingness to risk connection. Come into the unready manger of our hearts, that we may feel the warmth of new life and give flesh to the promise of hope that cries to bring healing into our world. Come, Christmas. Come, love. Come, hope. Be born in our unready hearts on this silent and holy night.
This is We Have a Story to Tell by Reverend Gretchen Haley, calling all who cannot wait any longer for joy, for hope, and some good news, even a little. The time has come, the waiting is over. Here in this time, we have an old story to tell, one that has been shared over and over for thousands of years, but still somehow it remains unheard, still radical and risky, breaking through into those days of darkness and cold, division and fear, interrupting the perpetual stories of violence and loss and the feelings of powerlessness into the errands and errors of our everyday. Christmas arrives not only to comfort, but to awaken, to reassure and also to stir us up into a new life, a life of peace and justice and courageous love that struggles to be born. Wondering if we will yet be the ones who make room in our lives and in our world for the refugee, the poor, the plain and messy sweetness of the newborn baby. If we will take the journey to Bethlehem, if we will be changed by the presence of a love that meets us where we are in the fields wherever we lay, and calls us forth into a new journey, a braver and bolder life, believing that it is not too late for strong and gentle people to win, for compassion and truth to have the final say, for the bright light of hope to shine through even on the darkest night. Come, let us celebrate the good news of Christmas and let us worship together. So now join in singing hymn 226, People Look East. The words are in your order of service.
Our story begins not with a birth, but with a promise. Foretold long ago by the prophet Isaiah, the hope of one who would bring peace and healing and freedom to a struggling world. A prophecy of hope, a promise of resiliency, a commitment to a better future. A promise relayed to a young woman finding herself pregnant, wondering if this was a blessing or a curse, wondering if this was the end of her or the beginning of hope. And the angel came to Mary and said, "Rejoice, favored one, the Most High God is with you. Fear not, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and give birth to a son, and you will name him Jesus. He will be great, and he will be called the Son of the Most High."
We know the scene, the room, variously furnished, almost always a lectern, a book, always the tall lily, arrived on solemn grandeur of great wings, the angelic ambassador, standing or hovering, but whom she acknowledges, a guest. But we are told of meek obedience. No one mentions courage. The engendering spirit did not enter her without consent. God waited. She was free to accept or to refuse. Choice integral to humanness. Aren't there enunciations of one sort or another in most lives? Some unwillingly undertake great destinies and act them in sullen pride, uncomprehending. More often, those moments when roads of light and storm open from darkness in a man or a woman are turned away from in dread, in a wave of weakness, in despair, and with relief. Ordinary lives continue. God does not smite them, but the gate closes. The pathway vanishes. She had been a child who played, ate, slept like any other child, but unlike others, wept only for pity, laughed in joy, not triumph. Compassion and intelligence fused in her, indivisible. Called to a destiny more momentous than any in all time, she did not quail, only asked a simple, "How can this be?" and gravely, courteously took to heart the angel's reply, the astounding ministry she was offered: to bear in her womb infinite weight and lightness, to carry in hidden, finite inwardness 9 months of eternity, to contain in slender vase of being the sum of power, in narrow flesh, the sum of light, then bring to birth, push out into air a man-child, needing like any other milk and love, but who was God. This was the moment no one speaks of, when she could still refuse. A breath unbreathed, spirit suspended, waiting. She did not cry, "I cannot, I'm not worthy," nor, "I have not the strength." She did not submit with gritted teeth, raging, coerced. Bravest of all humans, consent illumined her. The room filled with its light, the lily glowed with it, and the iridescent wings. Consent, courage unparalleled, opened her utterly.
Will you rise in body and spirit, join in singing "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear"? Words are in your order of service on the inside, top left.
Oh
Now it happened in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world shall be registered for taxation. This was the first registration. So all went to be registered, each to their own towns. Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, for he was from the house and heritage of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was betrothed and who was pregnant. So it was that while they were there, the time came for her to birth her child. And she gave birth to her firstborn son and swaddled him and laid him in the manger because there was no place for them in the inn.
It was quiet enough in the alley behind the barn, warm against piles of hay. I heard the sharpness in her breathing. It's coming! And I held her against the cold, against the pain, against it all. It's coming! They were hard, those first hours we all spent together, coming after so long a journey. Later, poets would tell of stars, shepherds and seers, songs of angels. But all that I remember at the end of that longest night is the cry of my heart, as in my arms I held perfect love.
I invite you to rise if you would like, or stay seated and join in singing, O Come All Ye Faithful. Shepherds were in that region. They're staying in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Then an angel of the Most High God came upon them, and the glory of the living God shone around them, and they were greatly terrified. But the angel said to them, "Fear not. Look, for I proclaim to you the good news of great joy for all people. There is born to you this day a Savior who is the Messiah and the sovereign God in the city of David. This will be a sign for you. You will find a baby swaddled and lying in a manger." So they went with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the child lying in the manger. When they saw this, they made known what had been told to them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds told them. And Mary treasured all these words and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, just as it had been told to them.
And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, "Fear not," which is maybe a silly thing for a creature made of wings and eyes to say to a couple of smolls who were just hanging out with their sheep until the heavens cracked open. Who wouldn't be afraid? And who stops being afraid because someone tells you? And yet, fear not is the thing that angels say, apparently. An angel says it to Mary and to Joseph. Fear not, as if that would undo the panic of the moment, let alone all the hardship to come. The story never says if Mary or Joseph or the shepherds were comforted by these fear-denying angels. Likely not. But all of them moved forward, did the next thing that was to be done, which is about all you can ask. And maybe when the word comes from Herod about smiting babies and they had to run, maybe when all the daily terrors of life descend, it could be good to have the angelic voices whispering, "Fear not," all down the long road and reminding you about the tidings of great joy.
Will you join in singing the first Noel? Lyrics are in your order of service. You may rise, you may be seated, however is comfortable for you at this time. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem, Magi came from the east to ask about the child that had been born, for they had observed a special star in the sky. King Herod was a jealous ruler. He considered himself the king of the Jewish people and was nervous that this baby might replace him. He told the wise people about a prophecy that had been spoken long ago, that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. So the wise persons set out for Bethlehem to find this baby, following the star they had seen in the far east. The wise persons followed the star until it stopped over the stable where the newborn child was lying in the manger. When the wise people entered the stable, they were overwhelmed with joy at this new life. They knelt down to be closer to him, and they opened their bags and brought out gifts of gold, special saps, frankincense, and myrrh. These saps were used in religious rituals for medicine. There was much to celebrate in that tiny stable.
The queens came late, but the queens were there, with gifts in their hands and crowns in their hair. They'd come, these three, like the kings from far, following, yes, that guiding star. They'd left their ladles, linens, and looms, their children playing in nursery rooms, and told their sitters, "Take charge, for this is a marvelous sight we must not miss." The queens came late, but not too late, to see the animals, small and great, feathered and furred, domestic and wild, gathered to gaze at a mother and a child. And rather than frankincense and myrrh and gold for the babe, they brought for her, who held him, a homespun gown of blue and chicken soup with noodles too. And a lingering, lasting cradle song. The queens came late and stayed not long, for their thoughts already were straining far, past manger and mother and guiding star, and a child aglow as a morning sun, toward home and children and chores undone. The queens came late, but the queens were there.
Once upon a time, a baby was born. Even before that baby was born, there were people waiting and wishing and hoping for that baby. The people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for that baby didn't know exactly what the baby would be like.
And so they wondered, Would the baby have a smile so warm that it could melt the coldest snow and ice? Would the baby have a voice so strong that it could shake the very mountains? Would the baby be so courageous that all would be comforted, even during the most ferocious storms? Would the baby show the world so much love that peace would settle into even the most hardened hearts?
But even as they asked these questions, as they imagined what the baby might be like, the people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for the baby already believed that the baby would indeed have a warm smile, a strong voice, a courageous spirit, and a loving heart. And they weren't wrong.
When Jesus was born, his tiny body was wrapped up to keep out the cold. He was laid down on straw in a trough that was used to feed animals inside of a barn. His young parents, proud and exhausted, had been forced to take a long journey far from home.
Jesus' parents were two of the people who had been waiting and wishing and hoping for him to be born. But there were people who had been waiting and wishing and hoping for Jesus to come. These people saw hurt and suffering in the world, and they believed that this new baby could use his voice to spread a message of love and peace, and they knew it would take courage for him to do so. But Jesus wasn't the only baby that people have waited and wished and hoped for. People have waited and wished and hoped for you and you.
Once upon a time, you were born. I know I was there. But even before you were born, there were people waiting and wishing and hoping for you. But those people who were wishing and waiting and hoping for you didn't know exactly what you would be like. And so they wondered, would you be kind? Would you be brave? Would you show love? Would you spread peace and joy?
But even as they asked these questions, as the people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for you imagined what you would be like, what kind of person you might grow up to be, they had already believed that you would be kind and brave and loving, and that you would spread peace and joy in our world. They knew that you could help ease suffering and hurt in the world, and that you would speak out against violence and oppression. And they weren't wrong.
Will you join in singing our sung response for So the Children Come? The lyrics are in your order of service.
For so the children come, and so they have been coming. No angels herald their beginnings. No prophets predict their future courses. No wise men see a star to show where to find the babe that will save humankind. Yet each night a child is born is a holy night. Fathers and mothers, sitting beside their children's cribs, feel glory in the sight of new life beginning. They ask, where and how will this new life end? Or will it ever end? Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping.
There are many ways we give to sustain and care for this church that we call home. These words from our hymn book, let there be an offering to sustain this place which is sacred to many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Our offering this evening is dedicated to our minister's discretionary fund, and this fund is available throughout the year to members and friends of our church community who are in need of financial support. The money gathered so far has been used to help with rent, food, bills, car repairs, these kind of things. So this money is shared back to our church and is another way that we take care of one another. So our ushers will now come forward. The offering will be gratefully received. If you'll join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation, a poem and then our prayer. The Risk of Birth, Christmas 1973. This is no time for a child to be born. With the earth betrayed by war and hate and a comet slashing the sky to warn that time runs out and sun burns late. That was no time for a child to be born in a land in the crushing grip of Rome. Honor and truth were trampled by scorn, yet here did the Savior make his home. When is the time for love to be born? The inn is full on planet Earth, and by a comet the sky is torn, yet love still takes the risk of birth. Yet love still takes the risk of birth. Spirit of love, great mystery, guiding star, it is good to be together. Hear our stories, so uniquely ours, holding joys and sorrows, heartbreak and celebration, loneliness and friendship, holding all of this and more, often at the same time. Here we gather, reminded that our stories intertwine, that we don't hold them alone but bring them here to the altar of community and shared humanity. Gather together to wonder and to wander, to be curious without the expectation of certainty, to imagine together infinite possibilities. What would we look like? What would the world look like with more peace, more love, more joy, more hope? Perhaps it is true that this is no time for a child to be born into a world still consumed by themes centuries old, war and terror and tyrants and hate and fear, and still, so the children come. So love comes taking the risk of birth, and so we wonder while we wander. What would the world look like if we remembered the great potential that comes in small and tender things? Small and tender beings. If we are changed by the presence of love that meets us in the fields where we lay, angelic voices whispering, "Fear not, fear not," all down the long road. May we be comforted by the Spirit shared among us and compelled by the stories, the promise of new life, a life of peace and justice and courageous love that risks connection, risks inviting one another, those we know, those we have yet to meet, into the unready manger of our hearts, and know that it is enough and it is never enough, and yet we say, "Come in, come in," again and again and again. For here there is love, honored in the magic of this dark and silent and holy night. Each night a child is born is a holy night. May it be so, so may it be. Amen. In the spirit of connection, we are going to end this sacred time together in ritual. So in a moment, we are going to do our best to gather in some kind of circle. Yeah, maybe we'll have to go over the pews. We're going to do our best and gather. Once we're in our circle, we will pass the flame to one another. So what's going to happen, we're going to hum while we sing, while we gather. I'm looking at Brian because Brian and Alejandro know the plan, right? Well, so we're going to gather in a circle. We're going to hum while we gather. We're going to hum while we light our candles. The choir is going to sing the first verse of Silent Night, and then we're all going to sing the first verse, and then the choir is going to sing the second verse, and then we're all going to sing the third verse, and then we're going to end on the first verse. And if you are wildly confused, as I am, Brian is going to be directing us. So I invite you to rise. Let's see what kind of circle-like shape we can form. We'll hum and prepare to light our candles. may extinguish your flames, trusting that that fire goes on in our hearts, reminds us of this love, of this joy, of this peace each and every day of the year. Go forth knowing that you are a miracle. Use your voice to spread love and justice, to care for one another. Enjoy this quiet, holy evening. We will extinguish our chalice. But not the light of this community. That light cannot be extinguished, for it lives in each and every one of us, reminding us that we are connected, held always in a larger love. Merry, Merry Christmas, everyone.